All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. And this, of course, is coming from Kabul, where it's a pretty big day, where amidst the many uncertainties, the Taliban is also all set to announce its new government this afternoon. Now, the Taliban, which, remember, was declared as a terror outfit by the United Nations, will now have to transform itself into a governing body. Reports suggest that the announcement is expected sometime after the Friday prayers, so which could mean in the next few ensuing minutes. The Taliban has promised a softer brand of rule than what was witnessed before when Taliban was in control in the years 1996 till 2001. But the question, of course, is whether it will follow through or not is what needs to be seen. The international community has at this point of time adopted what is being described as a wait-and-watch strategy, as it is mulling on the question of recognizing the Taliban as a legitimate power that has now taken control of Kabul. Latest reports that are coming in indicate that Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, who is a co-founder of the Taliban, is expected to become the head of the Executive Council. And this council will be functioning under an emir. And Sheikh Hebatullah Akhundzada is expected to be the supreme authority of the new Islamic Emirate. Key positions are also expected to be given to Sirajuddin Haqqani, another deputy and also an influential operations leader within the Taliban. And along with him is Maulvi Muhammad Yaqub, who is said to be the son of Taliban's movement founder Mullah Muhammad Umar. And he's expected to be given an important role within the government. Now, experts are hoping for some kind of an inclusive government, but the Taliban at this point of time has not confirmed anything. What we know for certain is that the Taliban is taking over a country that is ravaged by multiple crises. Now, there is the issue of war and other civil war-like situations that are threatening Afghanistan. There is an acute shortage of food. There is drought that is sweeping across the country. The currency has plummeted and inflation is through the roof. Now, more than a third of the population lives on less than $2 per day. Banks that were closed after the takeover of the Taliban have now been ordered to reopen. But this means that people, the residents of Kabul, have to spend several hours queuing up thanks to the strict weekly limits on cash withdrawals. And also to give us insights as to what could be the form and shape of this government that would be announced by the Taliban, we are joined in by Mr. Ashraf Heidari. He was, of course, the Afghan envoy to Sri Lanka, and he's joining us live on this broadcast on WION. Mr. Heidari, the Taliban is expected to announce the people will be populating the government in some time from now. What do you expect will be the nature of this government? Do you expect an inclusive government by the Taliban?
Exactly, like you've been reporting and a while ago, pointing out the key conditions set by the international community and the key basic expectations from the Afghan people for the Taliban to form a meaningful, inclusive and representative government that reflects the diversity of Afghanistan, as well as the basic aspirations of the Afghan people, building on the gains of the past 20 years, and also consistent with the conditions which recently were discussed at the special session of the United Nations Security Council on Afghanistan, where the international community not only called on the Taliban to form such an inclusive and representative government, but also to respect human rights, women's rights, international humanitarian law and human righs law, as well as making the efforts that they should to jumpstart the economy, of course, effectively run the state institutions at the center and local levels, while cutting ties with terrorist networks and preventing Afghanistan's territory from being used by terrorist and as well as criminal elements and networks.
Right, now the international community is waiting and watching as the events are unfolding in Afghanistan. Now, one of the things that the Taliban is looking for is international recognition. The Taliban has said in its past press briefings that this time round, the government in Afghanistan under the Taliban will be a more inclusive one. But the Taliban is essentially a Pashtun-driven movement but Afghanistan is ethnically very diverse. Do you think the other ethnicities will also find an equal say in Afghanistan under the Taliban?
Well, you said it all. They should, because whole Afghanistan means that all Afghan voices and diversities of the Afghan people are reflected in a government that is truly national in character. And it's only that kind of character of an inclusive and representative government that could help ensure long-term stability and peace in the country. So in the past, sidelining of certain ethnic groups and Afghan voices have happened, and unfortunately that have only, created a permissive environment for external interference. And so in order to completely, avoid that down the road on the medium or short, long term, it's very important for the Taliban to form such an inclusive and representative government that is acceptable to all segments of the Afghan society, and then go about, of course, at the same time addressing the expanding humanitarian crisis, working regionally and globally with the international community after meeting their basic expectations for a recognition to address Afghanistan's immediate needs. Remember that over the past 3 months, Afghan state institutions across the country were systematically destroyed. Basic service delivery infrastructure such as culverts, bridges, roads, electricity pylons, telephone towers, and so forth were destroyed, and as well as livelihoods of people across rural Afghanistan were also disrupted. So that's why you see, thousands of Afghans still trying to get out, not just from the Kabul airport that we have recently unfolded, seen, but also, at various cross borders of Afghanistan, southeast and west. So the Taliban have a lot to do when it comes to political governance and rule of law, as well as economic governance, to help put this country back together. And that could happen only when all Afghans participate in doing so, because one group cannot simply represent a whole nation of such diversity in which the Afghan people take pride in. That's very much the basis of the Afghan identity, which the Taliban are quite aware of.
Right, my last question to you, Mr. Hydari, is what role do you think the women, in fact, will have to play? Will they be a part of the top governing council in Afghanistan under the Taliban?
Well, there has to be a role for women. It's more than half of our population. So many Afghan men have unfortunately died on both sides, on our side and as well as the Taliban, over the past 20 years. And if you look at it collectively over the past 40 years, so there are more women in Afghanistan actually than men. And to sideline women and not to give them a leadership role, not just in the council or any leadership mechanism of the truly inclusive and representative government, would mean that Afghanistan could never actually achieve sustainable peace and development. That's impossible to achieve, and that's impossible also to achieve when it comes to the importance of implementing the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, to which Afghanistan is firmly committed and the rest of the world is committed. It's impossible to achieve sustainability without more than half of your population, the better half of your population, participating in the polity, society, and economy. So we hope, and the Afghan people and the women of Afghanistan hope, that the Taliban deliver on that basic need and expectation, and as well as the condition from the international community for recognition.
Well, to leave it there, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Ashraf Hydari, for joining us and getting us all those insights. So the Taliban have said that they will be announcing their governing council sometime after the Friday prayers. So we can expect it in a short while from now, and we'll be getting you as the events unfold in Kabul. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.